Good evening, I'm Bethany Williams. Welcome to my presentation on advocacy for human trafficking victims. I became aware of human trafficking when my husband and I moved back to Houston over 6.5 years ago, and I learned that Houston is a hub, especially in the United States, for trafficking. I could read the definition for trafficking, but it's lengthy and involved. I'm going to put it on a slide here in a moment. But what I want you to know about trafficking is that there are currently estimates of over 27 million people now enslaved. I used to think slavery was a thing of the past, and I very much wish that it were. My worldview literally crumbled quite a bit when I learned about human trafficking. It's an issue I've tried in many ways to learn about and to address. And I am hopeful that by the end of this presentation you will agree with me that it is a mission worthy of support for this project and for any church in America or really the world. What we need to know about human trafficking is that it's real, it is present, it is everywhere from the poorest neighborhoods all the way up to rich neighborhoods. My dear friend's babysitter was trafficked in Richmond, Texas, which is a very well-off suburb in Fort Bend County outside of Houston. She was trafficked about a year ago, just after her 18th birthday. She had been lured away very systematically by an older friend and a mentor that had turned her on purpose against her parents. This was very much in the news and got a lot of attention because it was in a very nice neighborhood with a very nice family. And while that might be the exception, certainly it can happen anywhere. We have many risk factors that we can minimize for children at risk, but it's something that no one is completely immune to, and so it's everybody's problem. Houston has Interstate 10 and Interstate 45. We also have 2 airports. We also have the ports, the ship channel ports. So it's very prevalent. I think you might be able to see just from that short description how it could have gotten into Houston. And what I will do in a moment is give some slides with some definitions, and I will also link to a video in a moment with another nonprofit working in Houston. I'm not familiar with them in a friendship, but I've heard a lot of great things about them, and I think that you'll see how one church's approach can be really powerful. But first, let me talk a little bit about why the church should respond to human trafficking. As Bevins and Schroeder attest in our chapter this week on advocacy, many people are homeless due to poverty, mental instability, physical handicaps, and immigration status. In such cases, having a home is the first order of business before one can talk about table fellowship around a dining room table. That's quite stark to me. These persons are literally homeless. With the worst homelessness I can imagine, I would argue some of the worst poverty. They have had a loss of personhood, of all identity, of their family, of their language, of their power, of their own body. They have been broken down by their captors to the point where they do not know who they are. They do not even believe any longer that their body is their own. They certainly wouldn't know that their body belongs to Christ. And so for that right there, I see a really dramatic opportunity for the church to step in. And then if we move to Sloan this week, he says it so beautifully in our reading using Psalm 146 and Luke 18. God uses God's uncontainable power for those who stand to benefit from it, those in greatest need of aid, aliens, widows, and orphans. The theological power and authority are seen as gifts given to a community through a person of power for those without it. We must use our voice in line with God's justice, articulating the needs to the powers. Forgive me if you're not familiar at all with human trafficking. I won't be able to do an education justice in this brief time, but I will place the definition now, and then I'll place the video from Elijah Rising here in Houston, and then we'll come back together and talk about what I'd like to propose.